I got the giggles. So all of a sudden I was like, okay, ready? Hi, I'm Hillary.
I'm Davita.
And we're the two Pilates chicks. Again, we don't know what our theme music is. I forgot that
But
the
here
last
it
time.
is.
But here it is. Season 5, episode 3.
Yes.
And we're talking about language around teaching Pilates.
Yes. The language around teaching.
And we had a lot, so we'll just try to rein ourselves in.
Well, it'll be hard, but we have a lot of ideas.
We have a lot of ideas and a lot of thoughts, and so hopefully y'all will join us on this journey and not get lost.
Yeah, we might go in tangents.
We might.
But our whole idea was talking about how we're talking about Pilates to our clients.
When teaching.
And a lot of these cues that we get into that are really nitpicky and kind of getting into fixing,
restricting.
Yeah, and like overly analyzing before we even let somebody just start to move.
Yes.
And kind of just like see where we go from there.
Yep.
And so all these little fixing, like particular alignment before even just going.
I like what you said. Your 12th rib needs to be here, and this needs to be here, and this needs to
your
do
chin's
this.
2
Your
millimeters
chin,
this way,
and a little bit this way.
And so like what we were thinking, the main idea around this is that our language to our clients should not be restricting movement.
Yes, it shouldn't be stopping them from moving or inhibiting. Is that right?
Yeah.
Inhibiting them from
Yeah.
moving. Because, like you said, we're guiding, and we kind of talked about that in the last podcast, which was even though it was like just a minute ago, completely forgot.
Teaching the body in front
Teaching the
of you.
body in front of you.
But that idea of us, that our purpose as Pilates teachers is to be guiding the client in their movement as they need, not fixing. We're not fixing them.
Right.
But we can help them.
Yes. Because we can help them
help
feel
guide.
better, we can help them move. But you're right, like fixing,
Like it's just not
it's just
good
not
language around.
I think it's not good language, yeah.
It feels negative, it feels impeding.
Yeah, like I think right off the bat telling your client, this is what's wrong, this is happening, you need to fix this is what we need to work on, is putting this negative kind of vibe, for a lack of a better word, into the session right from the get-go.
And
it feels icky.
It feels icky, yeah. And then it creates this idea of almost like anxiety around movement, where it's like, oh, well, if I don't move this like 1 millimeter this way, then I'm gonna get injured.
Yes.
Or
I'm gonna get hurt.
Like,
or it's wrong.
Yeah. Oh, my hips like this. Oh, my teacher told me my hips twisted, and now I'm gonna like I'm crooked. It's like that language just doesn't help.
And also to your point there, it's like, well, my hip is this and it's not this, so I got to make sure it's this. Well, then that's all they're thinking about, right? So they're just trying to keep that wherever it is that maybe they were told this is crooked, you need to make sure this stays, and then they don't know what to do. It's like, now what?
Right.
They're not moving. It's all about staying stuck in this like little.
They're stuck. But also, okay, maybe their femoral head has a little more rotation and they do have a slightly crooked hip. But okay, so then how do we move with that?
Yeah.
Like, we're not fixing that. That just is their body.
And I love that, what you just said, femoral head, because it's like, we don't have x-ray vision.
Yeah.
So we don't know the shape of, like what is their kind of hip joint shape? What is it? Is it, what's actually happening there? We can't see in there. So if we're restricting someone's movement into this like whatever box we want it to be in, how can we not be then setting them up for failure?
Yeah.
In some way without even realizing it.
Because we're just assuming, oh, this is wrong, so we're trying to fix that, and oh, it should be like this.
Has to be like this.
Yeah. It's just not, it's inhibiting that movement. It's stopping them from moving forward.
Yeah, because I think when we think about the language of teaching, we want to keep it positive. We want to keep them moving. We want to guide them. We want them to get challenged, be stronger, be more mobile. So if we restrict them, we're taking all that away.
Yeah. And then it's creating this person who feels like they cannot move until they're completely aligned. This box and this millimeter and this, and like maybe as they're moving, we can say, oh, like, can you reach here a little more? Oh, can we stack these boxes a little more? But it's like you're not, we were joking about earlier, like you're not taking a step out your front door and saying, wait, I can't start walking yet. I have to bring my last rib 2 millimeters this way.
Make sure my hip is here and done. Okay, now, and then you're walking like Frankenstein, right?
Yeah,
but you're like,
then you're stuck.
You're stuck.
Yeah.
And we talked about that in terms of like what we're doing in the Pilates studio with our client is more dynamic stability.
Yeah.
Because they're moving, and it's kind of like we were joking about snow skiing. Like you get off the chair, do you sit there on your skis for a moment and go, okay, wait, I've got to get this over this and this, because you're going to go down the hill and everything's going to be moving, right?
Change. Yeah.
Things are changing.
Yep.
You've got a mogul here. You're going downhill on this side and then this side. So it's like you're switching. It's you're avoiding. So you're using that dynamic stability because something is keeping you up, but something is also
while you're moving. Yeah, and I like that a lot. Like we're teaching dynamic stability, not rigid stability.
Don't move.
Yeah, and so as we were talking before, we were discussing the single leg circle, or the one leg circle, and it's like, so in that exercise, you're working the one leg as if it were your standing leg, and you're reaching, and that's the stable side, and then the other leg's moving, but the hips are still moving.
Your hips are moving.
You're in movement. The one leg, like, yeah, you don't want to be flopping all over the place, but you're trying to find stability with mobility.
Exactly.
And if you're trying to be so stable that everything's perfectly aligned always and forever, then the body can't adapt and you're actually not getting stronger.
And you're actually more at risk of being injured.
Totally.
Outside in the real world.
Definitely.
Because your body doesn't know how to react.
Yeah.
Because it's like when I tell people when you're first learning Pilates, everything, you're learning the choreography, right? So that's the language. We're trying to learn this choreography. And so we're just teaching, and they're kind of moving, and they're going really slow because they want to do it right? It's like, oh, I make the circle with my leg. Oh, I do this. But then once they've got that choreography, we want them to pick up that pace to challenge that dynamic stability.
Yep. To find that challenge point.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I even say, like, I'm just thinking right now about like side leg, different side leg things. And so if you're doing your like leg swing, and it's like, yeah, you're trying to be really aligned, but I almost say to my clients, like, try to find that point where you're going to kind of tippy a little bit and find that spot where you're challenging yourself.
Yeah.
To work against.
Because this other thing is like, you're kicking your leg forward and back, so things are going to move. They have to.
Yeah. The pelvis, like.
The pelvis is bringing your leg into flexion and extension.
Yeah. The pelvis is going into flexion and extension. If you think the pelvis is still in a side leg kick, that's not,
and that's
true.
Not gonna feel good either.
Yeah, it's gonna be very rigid,
very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
makes my back hurt.
Yeah, even just thinking about
it. Thinking about it, like,
I can like feel that rigidity.
I know.
But that's the thing. Like in the studio, we're trying to set people up for greater body health in the world, right? And so, if we want them to essentially just be perfectly aligned and not move,
but really, what is perfect alignment?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, your alignment's different than my alignment.
Totally.
And it's like there is no, this is how it has to be for every single person.
And also, just made me think, just my alignment is different depending on what I'm doing.
Exactly, because it changes.
It changes. So there's no perfect alignment ever.
No.
There's better and worse alignments.
Yeah.
But it depends on what somebody's actually doing. The position
they're in
has to change.
Yeah. You're sitting in a soft chair. You're sitting in a hard chair. You're standing. You're cooking. You're moving. It's constantly changing.
Constantly changing. And there's not, honestly, that much scientific correlation between alignment and injury rate. And the body is very adaptable.
Yep, it knows what to do. And I
And
think we take that away from clients a lot. Is letting that their brain and their body kind of have this orchestra going, and they know, so we're guiding.
Yeah.
But they kind of, it's like your body knows.
Yeah. Well, the body wants to be aligned.
Yeah, it wants to be mobile. It wants to not, be restricted.
So for giving cues that are very fix-it oriented and kind of restricting where somebody can go.
Yep.
it's just keeping that movement from happening. They're not going to feel good.
No, they're not. And I think it's like, if you think about like arthritis, I love this, because arthritis, you think, oh, it hurts, right? People have it in their hips, their shoulders, whatever.
Yeah.
And you don't move, it gets worse.
Yep. So you think, oh, I have pain, I shouldn't move. But it's actually the opposite.
It's opposite. But it's kind of the same thing. It's like, we don't want to sit there and take a movement away from a client, because again, like you said earlier, that is gonna maybe create injury out in the real world.
Yeah. Because
we've stopped this movement and we've restricted, and they think it has to be like this, and then they go play golf and they're like, oh,
something tweaked. And it kind of connects to our previous podcast on teaching to the body. It's like, if somebody can't do a certain movement, why are we forcing them to go there just because we think it should look a certain way?
Yeah.
And why are we forcing, like again, footwork, like we talked about last time, like why are we forcing it to be a very particular start position if that's not right for them?
Yeah.
And so in the same way, if this person has their own unique alignment for that day and that exercise, why are we trying to force them to be somewhere or tell them they can't move until they look a certain way?
Yeah. And I think also realizing that getting the person, like, we're not, I love this, Carrie Reeser said it in one of our times together, and she said the chances of us injuring a client in the studio is so, like, unless we forget like the chain and the bottom load, a safety thing. I mean, they're gonna hurt themselves outside in the real world.
Yeah.
And so we need to make sure when we're in here and teaching them that our language is in a way that's getting them to understand and learn for themselves and not restrict what they're doing in here.
Yeah.
Because then they go out there and they do something and they don't have the tools.
Yeah. Well, and you just made me think of, like, if our language in here is reinforcing anxieties around movement, where you're kind of that same thing, like, okay, you can't move until you're in this perfect alignment, then the person feels more anxious around moving and almost less capable, because they're like, oh, well, I can't do that if,
Yeah, well, I have this shoulder that does this, so I can't do that. I can't play tennis, or I can't do this, or I can't, I've got to be careful because.
Yeah, so it's just
blah, blah,
more,
blah.
It's more anxiety.
Yeah.
Which we definitely don't want to add to our clients'
No.
lives. But we want to help them feel more capable, not more anxious around what they feel like they can do.
Yeah, and I think also when it comes to, like you were talking about, our language and what we're saying with the client is like, you don't want them to come in and then every time be told what's wrong. And don't do this, don't move this, don't.
Yeah.
Make sure this. And then it's like, I would almost wonder, why do they keep coming?
Yeah, it feels negative.
It feels negative, and they're not moving. It doesn't feel good.
Well, it's all these rules about movement.
Rules.
Without letting their body be the guide for the movement.
Yes. So I feel like the rules can change, right? Because they're moving, and it's a different body. And I know we were talking about, like, I think also our language around teaching is, and we'll go to it when we talk about our sponsors, but but it's kind of like using our words, like you said, to guide a client. And so if something's going on and you know it, and you can just guide them in terms of like Swan, and just guiding them to like look up the wall and seeing where they can go, and not saying you can only go to this point.
Yeah.
Don't go any further than this.
Yeah. Because why are we telling them what their body can do?
Right.
Yeah.
Why are we stopping their movement?
Yeah.
Because we can, as they start to move, if we see things that need to happen or connect for them, we can guide that and say, oh, can you lengthen this? Can you make sure your hips are da-da-da, or whatever it is, and keep going. See where, you're going to stop them if you think they're going to get hurt.
Yeah. Because there's a difference between like a safety issue and thinking it should look a certain way and stopping somebody.
Yeah. And I think Swan is a good, because I had the same thing. Like for years I was taught by teachers where I thought this was my movement, but because I couldn't do this. So it's like, oh, don't go, don't. And so it started to restrict my movement in swan. And I found that with a lot of people as they've gotten put into this box and restricted. But it's like, let's move and kind of cue what needs to happen and see what the body can do. And then they go, woo, and they can
like,
do.
Oh, I can actually do
this.
Well, because so many people hate swan.
They hate it.
And I think it's mostly because you think I'm supposed to be able to get super high.
Yeah, and so it's supposed to look like this.
Yeah, supposed to look like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but then we have that language of, but don't look up because you don't want to hurt your neck.
Yeah, so I don't know when that started.
Yeah,
it's like,
so teachers then start saying, okay, well, keep your neck long so you don't crunch your neck, right? And so then you both think it's supposed to be super high, but then you're getting restricted from finding that way.
Yeah, because you're not letting your neck extend.
Yeah, because the cervical spine has to extend in order to allow the thoracic to extend.
In order to let the hips extend.
Yeah.
It all is connected.
It's all connected. And, I mean, so for me, you're making me think of, our working on my extensions, because for me, being super hypermobile, I can go there.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
Way up. But I can go way into it, and to a point that's not great,
good.
and it's a lot of lumbar hyperextension. So instead, for many years working with myself, I restricted my extensions to be super flat. And you cued me to really find the legs and find that reach through the legs more and that length out, then
go back. Yeah.
So you're still getting the looking up, but you're finding all that length first and then getting there. And so I'm getting into that position with length instead of crunch. So you're not restricting the movement, you're adding to it, but it's safer and happier.
Yeah. And I think that's so, I don't know, I think there's a lot of language around teaching, and there's a lot of, when we go into later, we'll talk about with our sponsors, is what we tell a client in terms of, this needs to happen. Because that's kind of saying, you need to do this. This is what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, can you push in there? Can you look up? Keep looking up, keep bringing your hips, do this. And it's like, they're not, it's like we say with, when we were talking before, I don't remember which podcast, I think it was the personage or whatever, but it's kind of like your client's gonna know when they should stop. They're gonna know if I go, I'm loose, or you can look at them and say, they're not looking up anymore or whatever, and then you say, oh, that's great, come on down.
Yeah, or that's you can tell that's the end.
You can tell, you can see it.
The
movement for them is done.
But yeah, I mean, I like those layers of saying, can you push more here? Can you reach? Keep lengthening the legs, keep reaching here, keep doing this. And it's just adding layers to the movement. So again, it's giving them these cueings that they can kind of tap into and think about. Yeah. And it just keeps adding to the movement as they're going.
And they're moving, and they're not being stopped from moving.
Yeah. They're not no, stop that wasn't right. Let's try that again.
Do over.
But
it's kind of the same thing. If you think about, we'll just take kind of what is that a good one? Do you think for set up the swan? The swan on the box, and it's you want to be set up in a way, but again, someone's really tall, right? So they're just, the carriage will be in where they can bring it in. Yeah. And it's just this whole not saying, well, you have to be in this has to be like this. Your knees have to be, feet, because it's kind of what you talked about. You could go in this huge big
for
V,
my external rotation.
External rotation. So it's kind of figuring. I was working with a teacher, and we did this with footwork. It's I don't correct right off the bat. I mean, obviously, it's heels together, toes apart on the bar. Yeah. And they're gonna figure that out.
See where they go.
Yeah. And I think that was the one when we were doing parallel, the arches maybe, where you were because you were so parallel that you felt like you were internally rotated.
Yeah. Well, because I have so much external rotation in the hips.
So for you, parallel arches didn't feel good. So what's wrong with it being a little bit
Yeah, why can't it be
Why
a
can't
little?
it be?
So
Because
my
for you that was parallel.
Yeah, and that's what you always said to me, like, well, find your parallel.
Your parallel.
Because my parallel is a little bit turned out.
Yeah. But think about it, and I love this, if you watch people, no one, and I understand, like, you know, yeah, you want, but you're really not, like, it's not about the feet, right?
Yeah.
Our feet are touched all the way up the leg.
Being in a parallel foot position is about the hips.
Exactly. So
I mean, it's where the thighs are.
It's where the thighs are.
Yeah.
So for you, it was like feeling like,
Yeah, because it was like really grippy and crunchy, and so it's like, okay, well, find
your parallel.
Find your position here.
And I think that's like the language around teaching is like, what's wrong with saying, you know, oh, well, where is it for you?
Yeah, what works for you?
What works for you?
Mm-hmm.
And giving them, instead of like, oh no, it has to be don't move, stop.
Yeah, all those negative terms.
Yeah. But I think, yeah, so you already said about, you know, because we don't want to go into the reinforcing, like you said, anxieties.
Yeah.
And
making them feel like flawed and
yeah, like their movement is wrong. Mm-hmm. Because the thing is, it's their movement.
Yeah.
And we're just making sure they don't get injured in the real world.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get their body how it's to move the way their body moves.
Yeah, and just understand movement more, adapt through movement more, build strength, build mobility, build capability, and that, you know, that just comes with allowing people to move and let the body and our guidance adapt them through it.
Yeah. Do you remember? Did you ever work in a studio where they had like the plumb line assessments? Do you remember those? For those that don't know, it's like the little string that hung down with a little weight, and then they would have the client stand in front, and the string goes like, it's supposed to be that perfect alignment
from your head
to your yeah. And it was like you could see the clients just start to like melt into like, oh my god, they closed down because it's like, oh well, your shoulder's a little like a millimeter higher on this, and oh wait, and it's like, and then they go home and they're like, oh my god, it is, oh my god, everything, yeah. It's like, and I was like, oh my god, that's so awful, but yeah, because I think for them to come in and then be able to move, and us teach them in our language, be in a way that is supportive and not restricting them, and it's not like what's wrong with you.
Yeah.
Kind of moment.
More positive. Where can we go? What can we do? Yeah, I mean.
And realizing no one's perfectly aligned. No one's gonna have a perfect this or perfect that.
And one side's always gonna be different than the
other.
And I have clients say that like, oh, this side feels so blah blah blah, and I'm like, yeah, everyone has a different side.
I had a client, she would say, oh, my drunk side.
That's funny.
That's funny. Oh, my drunk side. Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's a great way to describe
it. Yeah, I loved it, because she was a very positive person, too.
Yeah, I mean, and it makes sense because, and I tell people, I'm like, we're not symmetrical. People are not.
Well,
even.
imagine, like, look at models, right? Like if you look, especially, like, not the 70s or 80s, but if someone is perfectly symmetrical, they're not going to be a model.
No, it's a little creepy.
It would be really creepy. So it's the same thing with our body. It's like it lives, right? We pull things, we push things, we open doors, we move. And so yeah, we're always like favoring one or the other and doing this or carrying. And it's like,
and that's fine. That's okay.
That's okay.
Move through life.
And that's move through life. And then when they get in here, we're kind of like, if we see that kind of, you know, issue where it's like, oh yeah, they're really tight and they're not engaging that side, then we can use that language of, oh, can you reach more?
Can you reach that side a little more?
Yeah.
Can you push
this side a little more?
Yeah, because there's definitely things where we all have like a tighter this or that, and one side pulls in a little more, and I have that, and we were working on that today.
Rotating, whatever.
Yeah, and so giving the cues to reach out of that side more, find that length on the side that's kind of shortened and tight, but we're not saying, oh well, your hip is in the wrong spot, so you have to, you know, so
stop.
Yeah.
And let's fix that.
Right. As you're moving, see if you can because then otherwise, like we said, we're reinforcing those anxieties. we're likely not helping them build strength or mobility.
We're not challenging them because they're not able to move.
Yeah, so they're not progressing from that. And that's exactly the opposite of what we want.
We want them to progress. We want them to feel good. We want them to like go, oh my gosh, look how far I've come. Look what I've accomplished.
Yeah. So I think it's just a very important thing to think about, because when we go through all of our teacher trainings and all of our like workshops and things, we often are in that like diving into it mode of like looking at what's right in an exercise, what is proper alignment, what is anatomical, this and that, and we're very much like in that, and then we forget when we're teaching that's not the right language to use, that we want to keep it positive. It's
very different as a teacher studying and learning, and then the language with teaching. They're very separate. It's almost like we had this discussion, you and I, about anatomy and teacher training, and how much is too much and how much is enough, and what is that kind of like
that balance.
Need and balance. Because I feel like sometimes the client, it's like, I don't get it. They're like,
yeah. They're like, what are you saying?
I don't understand. What's wrong with me? What? Yeah. So it's like, it's you got to kind of get out of that teacher to, learning and think about, this is a client that I'm teaching. They're not
totally
a teacher.
Different.
Totally different.
And how you talk to teachers is
different
than how you talk to a client.
Because I know when I've had you in here and students have been in here, I will literally say, she's a teacher, so I'm going to say this. Because you know what I'm talking about. Where a client would be like,
what are you saying?
I don't understand. I also don't want to tell my client, oh yeah, this is what I noticed, because we'll be talking and and this is what we're going after, and this is what, You
just want to keep them moving. Give them that session. That's why they're here.
That's why they're there. But
but I think, the overall is just our idea of, we want to be guiding our clients, not fixing them, not thinking that we're fixing them, and not making them feel like we're trying to fix them.
I think that's key too. So they don't think that we're fixing them, that something's wrong with them every time they come in.
Totally.
Because bottom line is, they know what's going on in their body. They know if they feel like crooked when they lay down. Because they'll say, I feel crooked.
But it's that that language around teaching. What are we cueing? What are we giving to this client? What are we providing them? And it should be reinforcing movement and
not restricting it.
Not restricting it.
Oh, that was good.
So
positive language too. That's important.
And this again goes into
who's our sponsor, Davida?
Our sponsor. Our sponsor is the Two Pilates Chicks, sponsoring the Two Pilates Chicks, and our upcoming May workshop,
May 18th,
talking about
here in LA
at the studio. But talking about all of this sort of language around teaching and cueing,
kind of the outdated cues, the cues that maybe don't work well,
but that for some reason are popular.
And how to really cue in terms of, because I don't think there's a right way. Everyone's different, but we're kind of go through like, what is the best avenue for you as a teacher in terms of cueing your client?
Our outdated cues coming into some updated cueing that has updated science behind it, and not these cues that we hear all the time that just really
science has kind of said, you know what, no, that's not how it works. Because I think it's important as teachers that we stay up with science. I think that's very important.
Our practices should remain evidence-based.
So that's what the workshop, it'll be fun.
We're very excited.
You can go on our website. It's already up.
PilatesChicks.com. And follow us on Instagram at Two Pilates Chicks.
Woohoo! Yay! So thanks for listening. Season 5, episode 3. And we'll get our theme music in, and we'll see you next time.
We'll see you soon.
Bye! Woo! I think that was good. When do those come out?
I don't know.
I think one comes at the end of January.
God,
I have to pee.
I thought that too.
I have to go to the bathroom so bad.
So we could do next Wednesday or the following. The 24th or the 31st.
When did we drop the other one? It was last week?
Last week.
So if we did it
1, 2, 3. So it's either 2 or 3 weeks.
3 weeks then, right? Let's do 3 weeks.
31st.
So is that the 31st?
31st.
Okay, that gives me time to like get the music and then us to listen to it.
Yeah.
Because we have to listen to it. Oh, and
Because we did the 10th.